Hello, welcome to Session 2 of the Kinston 101 self-guided sessions. Today we'll be talking about the HUB, the Finance, Human Resources, and Management Information Services departments. Please feel free to take this session at your own pace and take breaks when you need it. Let's get started. What is the HUB? A hub represents the center around which the spokes of a wheel rotate. In modern city operations, all other services require three things: the money, people, and technology, represented by our Finance, Human Resources, and Management Information Services departments. Let's start with Finance. Our Finance department is led by Director Donna Goodson and is divided into three major divisions. The Collections Division is responsible for the billing and collection of licenses, charges, assessments, weed abatement, and demolition. They also serve as a liaison with the County Tax Office, which collects property taxes on behalf of the city. They also collect on past due amounts due to the city. Purchasing and Warehouse is responsible for assisting and guiding city departments that buy goods and services to ensure they comply with state statutes. They also dispose of city surplus and operate a central store of inventory. The Accounting Division is responsible for posting transactions to the general ledger, cash management, payroll processing, accounts payable, fixed assets, and debt management. They also assist other departments with financial grant management, complete regulatory reports, help prepare the annual budget, and manage the internal audit. So, how does local government get its money? As we learned in the first session, the General Assembly gives authority to municipalities and counties for particular purposes. In this case, the Public Purpose Clause guides how the city is able to spend its money. All public funds must be expended for the benefit of the citizens generally, and not solely for the benefit of particular persons or interests. This includes the following appropriate government activities, including police and fire protection, street construction and maintenance, utilities, parks and recreation, government administration, organizational support for area nonprofits, as long as the funds support an appropriate governmental activity, and other activities that meet this clause. The city is subject to a uniform set of rules governing their fiscal management, known as the Local Government Budget and Fiscal Control Act, including internal controls, the management of funding through funds, revenue, and budgeting public funds. We'll take these one at a time. We'll start with internal controls. The City of Kinston needs to pay for the personnel, supplies, and infrastructure necessary to carry out its public purpose. Proper management and expenditure of revenues are important to ensure that sufficient funds are available and to maintain public trust. Internal controls serve to detect, mitigate, and prevent misappropriation of monies collected or received by the City of Kinston. As you can see, there are a lot of internal controls that are intended to prevent any financial mismanagement, and we'll take these one at a time. The first is the annual independent audit. An audit is the review of financial records to prove that money has been spent in alignment with the budget established at the beginning of the year. The city must be audited by independent auditors after each fiscal year. The City of Kinston selects our auditor through a request for proposal process, which allows us to compare auditors by their technical qualifications, their references, and the cost. And the auditor usually spans a 3 to 5 year contract. The city is also required to have an audit for many federal and state grants to prove that the money they were given was spent for the purpose intended. This audit is usually completed at the same time as the annual financial audit. Next is the Local Government Commission. The LGC was created by the General Assembly to ensure that local governments are able to pay their obligations and don't take on too much debt. The LGC is in large part the reason that more North Carolina governments are rated AAA by national bond rating agencies than most other states. The LGC is responsible for the following: approving local government requests to go into debt, selling the debt or bonds on the unit's behalf, and overseeing the annual independent auditing of local governments, monitoring the fiscal health of local governments, and offering broad assistance in financial administration. This is a very important state organization that helps provide some oversight to the financial actions that municipalities take. The daily deposit requirement. By general statutes, all monies collected or received by an employee must be deposited daily with the finance officer or in an official depository and must be submitted to a properly licensed and recognized cash collection service. For example, utility payments are submitted and processed via a lockbox system through the First Citizens Bank and via an electronic payment system. Attendance fees at parks and recreation facilities are also deposited daily, and so are permit fees from the police, fire, and inspections departments. This makes sure that all of the fees which are given to the City of Kinston are deposited properly. Next, we have the pre-audit requirement and the disbursement process. A pre-audit essentially means that you plan for the money that you're going to spend. The city cannot commit itself to pay for any obligations unless the budget ordinance includes an appropriation authorizing that obligation and an available balance remains in the appropriation sufficient to pay for it. All contracts and agreements must certify that this has been done. For example, the Downtown Kinston Mural Program commissions artists to create murals downtown. The city started with a budget, and when they were contracting with the artist, they made sure that they had enough money left in the budget to pay that artist before they went through with the contract. This makes the disbursement process, or payments, much easier. General statute requires when a bill is owed by the city, the finance officer must verify that the amount is due, that it's been budgeted for, and there are sufficient funds left in the budget to pay for it. In some cases, there might be insufficient funds in the budget for a bill, and the City Council must amend the budget or the project ordinance to make or increase the appropriation. The city manager may also approve transfers of appropriations between accounts within an organization's budget to make up this difference. Next, we have dual signature. Each check is required to be signed by the financial officer or a designated official and countersigned by another official to ensure that multiple people review a check or a draft before it gets signed. Employee and official bonding. The finance department head, budget officer, and other important employees that handle finances are bonded, meaning the city will receive compensation in the unlikely event that an employee commits fraud or otherwise mishandles the city finances. This protects both the city and its residents against potential mismanagement. Lastly is the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, or CAFR. A CAFR is a financial report that complies with accounting requirements given by the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. These requirements go above and beyond the reporting required by the state. So why do we do it? Financial transparency. It's important for the City of Kinston that its citizens know exactly how their money is being spent. But it's also useful information for lending institutions when the city wants to finance major projects, so that lending institutions also know that the city manages its money responsibly. Okay, time for a short break. And we are back talking about funds. The city organizes its finances through funds, groups of related accounts that are for a specific purpose or activity. Funds fall under 4 basic types: governmental, enterprise, internal service, and permanent funds. Governmental funds house the money for the city's basic services and departments. Enterprise funds house business-like activities funded without taxpayer money. For example, the Kinston Community Center is run based off the income it receives from memberships and attendance at the water park, not from taxpayers. Internal service funds allocate costs shared between the functions of the city. And permanent funds are assets held by the city in a trustee capacity, where revenue made from the interest on the principal amount is used for a particular purpose. Let's see how this breaks down within the city. Under governmental funds, which have basic services and departments. You see the general fund, special revenue funds, capital projects, and a single permanent fund. The single permanent fund held by the city of Kinston is the Temple Israel Perpetual Care Fund, which is used for cemetery maintenance at Temple Israel. The enterprise funds for the city of Kinston represent the utilities and the Kinston Community Center. So there's an electric, water, wastewater, environmental, and stormwater fund, each of which helps maintain and pay for the services provided by that utility. Our internal service funds include things like employee health self-insurance fund, which is shared by all city employees, and the fleet maintenance fund, which is used by departments that have city vehicles, including the inspections department, the fire department, the public services department, the police department, and several other departments. The general fund has some of the most variety of services within it. These are the resources traditionally associated with government, including everything from the city clerk to the Parks and Recreation Administration, programs and parks, the planning department, law enforcement, Pride of Kinston, and the appropriated fund balance, which is like the city savings account, which we'll talk about later. Special revenue funds are used to account for specific revenue that is legally restricted to expenditures for a particular purpose. These are things like grants or other kind of very particular monies. For example, our EPA Brownfields Assessment and Cleanup Grant was used to conduct community-wide assessments where there is potentially contaminated hazardous substances on sites in Kinston. Only for that purpose could you use the money that was in the EPA Brownfields Assessment and Cleanup Special Revenue Fund. There's also capital project funds, funds used for the acquisition or construction of major capital facilities associated with general fund operations. An example of this is the fire pumper truck. So, for example, the fire department and police department every once in a while need to make a major capital investment in their vehicles, which help them go on service calls. And you may need to establish a capital project fund in order to pay for something that costs more, which you know that you'll need to pay for every once in a while, but isn't part of your year-to-year budget. Next, let's talk about revenue, how the city gathers in money. The city is responsible for obtaining sufficient revenue to cover the costs of its services, and the state outlines specifically the sources local governments are allowed to use. And as you can see, there are many. The primary way is through local taxes, through property tax. Property tax is the main way, but also through local sales and use tax, rental car gross receipts, motor vehicle license taxes, occupancy tax, and others. They also use local fees, charges, and assessments. Among the most common are the utility fees that utility customers for the city of Kinston pay each month. Also, Kinston Community Center membership fees, permits and inspection fees, cemetery fees, and fees associated with recreation and cultural activities. There's also revenue that comes from the state, which the state shares with counties and municipalities. This includes beer and wine taxes, pipe natural gas tax, motor fuel tax, telecommunications tax, and utility franchise taxes. The percentage of revenue that the state shares with the county and the cities can change at any point based on the actions of the General Assembly. There are also several other local revenue streams, including from the ABC Board, investment earnings, payments in lieu of taxes, the Lenore County Recreation Department, which contributes to the Parks and Recreation Department as a collaboration between Lenore County and the City of Kinston, building rentals, the Granger Stadium Wood Ducks lease, the sale of surplus property, and donations. In the fiscal year 2018, the total revenue for the city was around $91 million. As you can see, most of this, $71 million, comes from local fees, charges, and assessments. As we just learned, most of this is utility payments, which is specifically in enterprise funds that can only be used for that purpose. So even though we get $71 million through these local fees, charges, and assessments, it can only be used to support our public services utilities. However, the general fund, which we learned covers almost all the other city departments, is funded primarily through ad valorem taxes, 41%. And this is property taxes. So most of the taxes which support the day-to-day city operations comes from property taxes. Let's look a bit at the City of Kinston's expenditures. In 2018, the total expenditures were $88 million. Some of this goes to debt payments, so paying down the existing debt that the city has. Some of it goes to capital outlay, which is paying for those large projects. A significant portion goes to the salaries and benefits, which support City of Kinston employees, but a majority goes to operating expenses. You may be wondering, if the city only expended $88 million but gained a little over $90 million, where is that difference coming from? This is the general fund unassigned fund balance, the amount that the city doesn't touch each year. And this is like the city's savings account. The Local Government Commission, which we learned about earlier, recommends that we keep this amount above 8% of our total expenditures. This fund balance is used as an emergency fund during disasters or as an amount of capital to draw from in special cases. It's always good to have something to fall back on in case of an emergency. Next, let's talk about the budget. For an expanded explanation of the budget, see session number 10, where this is talked about more fully. The budget is a guidebook for spending money through the year based on our expected revenues to accomplish the goals set by the City Council. It's also a strategic plan that should reflect community values and separate wants from needs. It cannot be all things to all people, but based on the services we provide, it should reflect the things that we value. Lastly, it's a policy tool that separates money into different funds and determines what level of services to provide in each department. The city budget must be adopted by July 1st every year. It must be balanced, which means the revenue has to equal the expenditures plus the fund balance. The budget has to be discussed in open meetings, and there must be a public hearing before the City Council adopts it. The budget is passed by a simple majority vote, and the LGC recommends they maintain a minimum fund balance in each budget. The budget timeline occurs over half the year. Starting in December, departments share the expected costs that they think they'll have over the coming year. In January, the budget officer takes these and gives out department budget request worksheets where departments can share anything else about their expected costs and ask for more funding if they would like to do an additional or different project. In February through March, the budget requests are due from the departments and the City Council goes on a budget retreat to review their strategic goals and to review any major decisions they might need to make in the new fiscal year. In April, there are revenue projections, which will show how much money the city thinks that it's going to get from its various revenue streams so that it can match its hoped expenditures. In May, the City Council receives the manager's recommended budget, which has been created through the manager's office, the budget officer, and the finance department. In June, there's a public hearing where the City Council officially discusses the budget and adopts it before July 1st, when the new fiscal year begins. Let's talk about how you can get involved. You can talk with the department that handles the services you'd like to discuss in January through June as they're preparing their own department budgets. You can attend City Council meetings to advocate for where you'd like to see the money go. You can also attend the public hearing in June to hear the City Council discuss the coming year's budget. And you can read the current budget. You can find it online at kinstonnc.gov, going to the Government tab and clicking on Finance and going to the budget. Or you can read a paper copy by visiting the City Clerk, Deborah Thompson. Let's take a short break. And we're back with Human Resources. Human Resources is the department that supports city employees in many ways, including recruitment and retention. Position descriptions are created by departments and promoted by Human Resources. HR also helps them plan for succession. Citywide training, which includes employee training updates on personnel policies and other relevant topics, including COVID-19 updates, social media use, etc. Salary schedule and pay plans. They coordinate with finance to complete payroll, do retirement checks, and other employee payments. They also handle employee benefits, which includes retirement through the local government retirement system. North Carolina is in the top 5 retirement systems in the United States. They also participate in the Health Sense program, which provides incentives for employees to maintain healthy practices. They also include personnel records management and compliance with state and federal laws. Human Resources also includes risk management, which includes employee safety programs, workers' compensation, and commercial lines of insurance that protect property, city vehicles, general liability, bonds, and public official and law enforcement liability. If you're interested in joining the city, you can apply online at governmentjobs.com/careers/KinstonNC. Computers are available in the Human Resources Department, or they are available to assist you by phone. Prepare information about your email contact, education, employment history, resume, and references beforehand. Finally, we have Management Information Systems. This is the department that helps manage all the technology for the city. They maintain all the computerized systems for all city departments, 191 computers, phones, faxes, printers and scanners, and more than 40 servers. They provide guidance to the city in planning its strategic direction for current and future use of technology and software systems. They determine technology needs for all departments by analyzing their needs and recommending appropriate hardware and software systems. And they protect city data from potential threats to residents and utility customers. They do this through a variety of tools. They help create the city website, but each department is responsible for updating and managing their own pages. They also help manage the online utility payment system, Banner, which is a financial system used by HR, finance, and customer service, police and fire mobile data terminals that they take with them on service calls, and Time Clock Plus, which is a clocking in and clocking out software for employees. They also use various hardware that increases internet speed, ensures our connectivity, and helps keep enough storage for all the public information that the city is required to maintain. This is a graphic example of how MIS is able to control and monitor all systems that are associated with the city. They're also able to monitor the speed and any viruses or attacks that may be happening on the system at the moment. Thank you so much for your time. Next session, we'll be talking about all the divisions that make up public services and what it means to be a city that provides excellent utilities. Thanks for watching.